Hi, I'm Bob Graham. I'm really glad you're here. I want to talk to you about writing your book with power. And you're probably here for one of three reasons. And so you're either intrigued by the idea of writing your book, you've been thinking about it, and just haven't gotten around to it, or don't know where to start, or maybe you started your book, you got stuck somewhere, you wrote what you knew, and you only had 20 pages, and that didn't seem like enough for a book, or and this happens. I've done this with a couple of novels where I started, I was writing, and then I went back after a week or two and read what I wrote and said, "This is really silly. Why am I writing this?" And I stopped. Or maybe you're just someone who published a book, thought that Amazon was going to sell it, you were going to be the next bestseller, and it didn't happen that way. You're disappointed and you're trying to figure out what to do. If you're any of those three, you are in the right place. So, a little bit about me. I'm a former journalist. I did PR marketing. I've written several books, like I mentioned. I've helped, probably right now, if you look at probably 10, 12 authors with books, a couple of novels, and a lot of nonfiction. I was a teacher. I taught English and journalism. More on that later and why that plays into this. And I also taught some marketing and consumer behavior courses at Johns Hopkins. And I've been a business coach for all kinds of businesses. And that's really one of my passions, coaching businesses to be more successful. And writing a book is one of the really great ways to market your business. Writing a business book gives you instant credibility because we all know how hard it is to write. We struggled through it in English class, in high school and college. You had to write a 5, 10 page paper. And now this person's written enough words for a book, so they really understand the topic. That's what most people realize when they see a book with your name on it. It also is something that you can share with your clients. It's a great touch point, a signed book when you're meeting with them for your annual, quarterly, semi-annual meeting, or just something you send to them to say, "Hey, I was thinking about you. I want you to see this book I wrote." Sign it, and they hold on to it forever. Here is a business card that I got from one of my clients. Okay, and now I'm going to go to my little magic drawer, and where's my book? Here's the book I wrote. This is the book. This is how the business card looked after a couple weeks. I'll turn over so you can see, all crinkled up. The book with my inscription inside it, sitting on their bookshelf. They actually pointed it out to me, and I've had a lot of people point out the books I've written that they have around. It can be on their desk, it can be on their coffee table, in their lobby, it can be at home. I even have someone who showed me her book several times, the one I signed, in her purse over the course of about 3, 4 months. That's the value of a book. It lasts forever. People don't get rid of signed books. They just don't do it. They feel guilty. They feel bad. I guess they're afraid the author will find it in the used bookstore and go, "Oh, I can't believe he did that." Whatever it is, it really works. It also gives you a tool that you can share with your clients, friends, and families. A great way to get referrals is to say to your clients, "Hey, I've got this book. I send you a copy. I'm wondering, is there anyone else you know that needs to see this book that could help them?" And you send that person a signed copy. They look at that book, and next thing you know, they're interested in what you have to do. They realize your philosophy, your approach, and you get an easy referral. You also can call them and say, "Hey, I sent you a book a week or two ago. I was wondering if you got a chance to see it, what your thoughts were." It can also give you months, if not years, of social media content. By the time you write a book using my process, my power process, you're going to know your client, you're going to know what they want, what they need, and you're going to uniquely understand them and how to appeal to them with the words you write. That means all kinds of social media. It can be blog posts, it can be things that you would do video on, it can be quotes that you would pull out of your book and say, "Hey, if you want to learn more, call me, or I'll be happy to send you a book." It is limitless. And so if you're someone who's thinking about social media content, putting together a business book can really accelerate that process and make it so much easier. Now, you may say, "I don't have time, I don't want to write a book." And you could go out and find a pre-written book, they're out there, and slap your name on it. The problem with that is going to be when someone says, "Hey, well, I'm a little confused about what you say in the first chapter or the 15th chapter." You're going to say, "Oh, wait, let me get a book and let me explain it to you." You're not going to really understand it. It's not going to have your voice. It's not going to feel like you wrote it because you didn't write it. Same thing with ghostwriting. There are ghostwriters out there. I know how they operate. I've talked to some of them. First of all, they bang anywhere from 5 to 20 of them out a year, so it's a factory kind of operation. No offense, it's got a place, but I'm not sure it's a place I want to be. I've never been a ghostwriter. It also is they ask you to talk to them about what you're doing or to record your thoughts and your ideas. They take those transcripts and turn it into a book. Introductions, closing, how chapters should go. And it feels largely like a transcript. It doesn't feel like your voice yet. And then the third option that you have if you want to avoid writing, and a big trap, is AI. I know artificial intelligence can do anything. It can write a book in 5 minutes. I've seen things on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Let AI write your book. The problem with this book is it's going to be general because AI is pulling general information. The other big problem, and this could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars, is right now there are big publishing companies suing people who use AI to write things, whether it's a blog post, a book, video, it doesn't matter, because the source of that material could be copyrighted. And if it's something owned by a big publisher, some of the bigger authors, they're starting to sue and saying, hey, you have this in your book, which they'd be able to get a copy and look, and we didn't give you permission, so you owe us money for using that. It's a rabbit hole. It's an area of law that's being realized now, figured out, and I don't recommend you get into it. So I would really advocate that you write your own book. And with my process, it's not as hard as you think. Great writers know their audience. They plan more, they write less, they avoid blank pages. They don't have blank pages. They just don't, because they know what they're writing. They invest in good editing, and they use their book powerfully, okay? I've had to help a lot of people with their writing to go from I've got writer's block to I've written something. And with the books and the authors I've worked with, I started to realize that there was a process that I was following. And it really is heavy on the first two things, the positioning and the outline. Those are the key. If you know what you're going to write, why you're writing it, and what you want to say with the positioning and the outlining, the writing becomes quicker and easier. It works for my books. It's worked for other authors that I've worked with books. It's worked for those students. And I want to walk through it with you right here because I think it might work for you. So let's walk through this, okay? The position of the book is who is it going to serve? Who needs you most? We might talk about your last 10 clients or customers. We might talk about the people that helped you figure out that you could do this business. We talk about why they might not choose you. We talk about what the real problem is. And I'm always amazed when I talk to people about positioning that they think a person's problem is something very discrete. But when I work with them, we start to dig deeper into what the problem really goes to. It might be that they don't feel good about themselves. It might be that they don't feel like they have the skills they need. It might be something very big or something very discrete. But when we reach it, it's fascinating to me that the person goes, oh, you know what? That's exactly how it is. How'd you know that? And that's something that really makes it easier. So by pulling from the past, by really digging into what the problem is, by really trying to figure out how you uniquely serve your audience, you can position your book in a way that makes it more valuable to those people. And that's what I see missing in so much book writing these days. The next thing is outlining. I'm a firm believer that you spend a lot more time on the positioning and the outlining than you do on the writing. In fact, I would argue the more time you spend on the positioning and the outlining, the better your book's going to be, the more valuable it's going to be, and the easier it's going to be to write. Easier to write. And isn't that what you're looking for? Because if you've figured out what your content is by either brainstorming, free writing, brainstorming, of course, you just get a whiteboard or sheet of paper or your computer, your phone, whatever, and just write every idea you can think of. Good ideas, bad ideas, doesn't matter. You're just trying to get stuff on a page. The second option is free writing. You just go out and you basically write. I used to tell my students when I taught English courses and we were doing free writing, I want your pen or pencil to stay on the paper for 10 or 20 minutes. You just have to keep writing. I don't care if you write your name. I don't care if you write Susan loves Tommy. It doesn't matter. You're just writing for the whole 10 or 20 minutes. And at the end, you go back and you look at it. You might circle some things that you think are great. You might find some words, some ideas, some phrases that you can use in whatever you write. So it can be a really powerful tool. The next way I found that I work with people to help them find content is by having them record their thoughts and ideas. I was working with a guy that I mentioned earlier, Joe Conroy, financial advisor, and he came to me one day and said, "Hey, I want to write a book." He had just started in the industry. And I said, "Joe, you don't have enough experience. You don't know enough to write a book. Go out and get some stories from your clients. Think about things. Come back to me when you have enough that you think we can put together a book with your ideas." Now, I've said that to dozens of people, and they've walked away, and I've never heard from them again. Joe was the exception. Joe came back to me after about 4 years. We went to lunch, and he showed me several pages of notes, of stories, of things that he could put in a book, all about financial planning. From that, we chose some, we put some together, and next thing you know, we had an outline. And he wrote to that outline. And I like to journal and just be like, okay, today I'm going to write this chapter. And before I start writing, I'll write in my journal what I'm writing about. I'll think through it at that level. There's something about writing in my journal that sits by my bed that's different than writing into my computer when I'm writing the book. And so by journaling, I've got, it's almost like a practice run before the big race. And I've done everything just like it's race, but in my head, it's not the race. The last one is mind mapping. And I want to show you an example of this one because most people don't really understand this one. And I found this was a real eye-opener to my students, especially college students, undergrad, grad students. They love this. And it works really well for me. So I'm writing a book about writing a nonfiction book about my power process. And this is the mind map. I started with this gray section here in the middle, writing a nonfiction book. And then I went different directions. I talk about publishing today. You saw me talk about AI earlier. And by the way, some of what you see here, most of what you see here actually aligns with this because this is me really getting at the idea of what I'm trying to talk to people about. So you can see, you look at this, it just goes out in little trees. Publishing today, the things, how easy it can be, the costs, all that. And then a section about me, where I talked about this, the power process. You're seeing that part now. Why write a book? And then a big thing that most people aren't really thinking about, but can be key, and you have to overcome is procrastination. Now, I should tell you, there's software you can do this with. I'm not a big fan of the software. I just used the software to make this look good because if you looked at my scribbled version of this, you would never make sense of it. It's boxes, circles, squares, all kinds of different things. So you've got your content, and now you're actually going to outline it. Now, when you do the actual outline, this is not like 9th grade or 12th grade where you had to write an outline and you turned in the outline and you were stuck using the outline. Whatever you said in the outline, you had to do in the paper. See, I know this. I used to be an English teacher, and one of the things I love to do is help people understand how writing can work, not English teacher way, which is so formal and so hard to feel any enjoyment from. And I say that as a former English teacher, but from the writer's perspective. So you can use any model you want. You don't have to use the structure that you see here with the letters and the numbers and all. That's not important. It's really not. You can use bullets, letters, numbers, stars, squigglies, dashes. I don't care. No one's going to see your outline. They're going to see a published book. No one ever has asked me, hey, show me the outline. See if it matches up with the book. No one cares. It's a way to figure out topics because bigger topics end up being chapters. And that can be really powerful. So you have chapters, and then below each chapter, I like to talk in my outline about the key points I'm going to address. And then I add stories of success with each, things I've done with clients and customers that help me. So if you were looking at my outline for my book, you would see that story I told about Joe Conroy as talk about Joe, talk about Joe's experience. And then there's another story about another client. So that's how I do things. I group things together, and then I make an admission to myself. But the outline is the starting point. This is what I'm going to write to, but it could change. That slide I showed you just now that had procrastination, I actually added that pretty late in the process. I realized I had to talk about procrastination in the book, or else the book didn't have enough in it to really help people understand the process and really use the process. So that was a late addition. So then the writing. With my process, we're really talking about 60 to 90 minutes a day. Most people think writing a book, you have to stop everything and write all day long every day. And I will tell you, that doesn't work. I can't do that. There are occasionally days on the weekend when I want to write all day and I'll write all day. But even then, it's exhausting. So I'm looking for people that write 60 to 90 minutes a day. There are days where they might write 200 words. There are days when they might write 1,200 words. It doesn't matter. I'm not asking them. And when you're writing a book, it doesn't matter. You're going to have good days and not so great days. If you're using the outline as the foundation, though, you're going to know what you're writing. You're going to know where you are. And then with most of my clients, we do a daily word count check-in. I ask them just to text me how many words they're up to that day. It's easy. Any software that you use will give you the word count. And you can just say, yes, I have one author who I think was at 4,260 words Friday. I think it was up to 5,003 on Saturday. And then the other thing about the writing is having someone to help you with the problems that come up. It can be lonely when you're writing, and you need to have someone that you can talk to that can help you through it. I do this with whatever book I'm writing. I always have someone that I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to write a book. Can I call you if I get into trouble? Can you encourage me when I get frustrated? Can you remind me to stick to it? And that can be so powerful in the writing process and something that most people overlook. They just think, oh, I'm going to sit and write a book. But if you stick to it by yourself, you don't have all the tools you need because you're going to be the harshest critic of yourself, or you're going to be the easiest critic of yourself. You're either going to be, oh, this is horrible, or this is the greatest thing ever. The reality is we need that help to make sure that we're not going down the wrong road. Or with some of my authors, they'll start writing and then they'll get to a certain point. They'll send me some of it. And I look at it, it's like, oh, I love, with one author, it's like, oh, I love your sense of humor. You need more of that. It really works. With another author, it was, hey, I think you're getting too bogged down in these stories. I feel like you're telling me parts of the story that the reader doesn't need to know about. They don't need to know about a cloudy day or a rainy day when they're sitting in an office with a prospective client and you're telling a story about that meeting. They don't need to know what kind of car the person's driving. And so that goes back to writer's eye. And that's one of the ways that when I'm working with authors, I help them to figure those things out, to make sure that they, as soon as possible, can figure out what works the best and what's most powerful and do more of that, rather than getting it done. Because one of the things I've seen, and I go through this myself, is you write all that you want to include in your book and you fall in love with your words. You absolutely love your words and they're like your baby. You don't want anyone to mess with your baby. And so you really struggle. It's like, no, this is really important. This is a great passage. I love these words. They love every word. I feel that sometimes myself, and I have to say, okay, these are great words, great sentences, but do they serve the purpose? And that's why a great editor really helps a writer be better, because they're the one who says to them in a way that they understand, hey, this is really great writing, but I don't think it has a place here. We need to think about what the audience needs, what your audience needs. And your audience needs something different than me and different than the other person writing a book. Even if they're writing a book on the same topic and they have the same type of audience, your book has to be unique to you. Okay? So next, editing. You cannot edit your book yourself. I've edited many, many things. Newspapers, magazines, annual reports, speeches, books, book drafts, novels, you name it, I've probably edited it. And I'll tell you right now, I can't edit my own stuff. I've got to get someone else involved. It will not work. It does not work. I don't care. You may say, oh, I'm the person who knows most about my topic. I know what I was trying to do. I know my style. That's why I hear all the time from people, no, that mistake, that's my style. Doesn't always work. It's not, you need someone outside to throw the rain at you and say, hey, this is the way it reads to me, an outsider. Now, I will tell you, one of the things that I think I help my authors with is I get what they're trying to do because I've been involved with them at every step of this process, this power process, from the positioning to the outline to the writing. So I'm helping them with the editing. So I understand their intent. They don't have to explain to an editor, here's who I'm going to reach. Here's what I'm trying to do. This is why it's so important. And a good editor doesn't just worry about spelling and grammar. They see passages, sentences, words that aren't clear, and they challenge you to be more clear. That's actually one of the parts of this whole process when I work with people on it that I like the most. I love the process of going through and figuring out what they're trying to say that doesn't show up on the page. And as we get more clear, more concise, more crisp, the message becomes clearer and it appeals even more to their prospective clients and their clients. And then the last part is releasing it. Now, you can publish your book yourself. It's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's really difficult, actually. It's gotten easy for me because I had to figure it out for a couple of my books. You can go to a printing company. They'll print it for you. You can go to Amazon, and they do print on demand. Some other services do that. One of the things I realized is with my books, I didn't want it to look to the reader as if I published it myself. So I created a printing company. Okay, and this printing company, this publishing house, as I call it, makes it look like someone vetted my book. So if they go, "Oh, who published this?" They see this publishing house. They go, "Oh, wow, someone must have really thought this was valuable. It's not just Bob saying it's valuable." And that's one of the things I think has really helped my authors. The next thing is what I talked about earlier. It's really not about sales. If you're writing a book to sell copies and make money from writing a book, let me just tell you, by the time you invest the hour and a half for a couple of months to write the book, and that's all it takes with me, with my process, you've spent so much mental time because as you're writing a book, you're thinking about it all the time. You've invested in the copies of the book, and it's not about sales. It's just not. Your chances of being a best-selling author are probably slimmer than you being hit by lightning or winning the lottery. The other thing is you want to be diligent. When you're releasing the book, you need to constantly be servicing it. So many people I see write a book, put it on Amazon, and then that's it. They never see it. They never talk about it again. It goes away. At that point, it's done. No more. I did my part. The world will figure it out. What I do is help my clients figure out how to get in front of people with their book in powerful ways. It could be for book signings. It could be speaking at conferences, which my book has helped me do. It could be going to trade shows and selling copies or giving away copies. It could be being a sponsor of something and giving a book in a gift basket. I've done that. There are a whole bunch of different ways that you can get the book in people's hands, the hands of the people that might become your client. And to me, that's the whole value of writing a business book. Nothing else matters. Okay, so one of the authors I worked with, this was early, before I really formalized the process, is Bob Porterfield. And he wrote this book. You can see it over on the far left there. Photographers of Carroll County. It's a community in Maryland, outside the city of Baltimore, and he pulled together a whole bunch of photos from these various photographers, and he showed me a draft of the book, and the captions and the other information just wasn't really clear. It just didn't appeal to its audience. So we worked through it, and you can see down at the bottom, his book was really not about getting clients. He was actually retired. It was about making sales in the community, and we passed his sales goals. And making that distinction actually helped me help him with the book. He didn't really think about that distinction, but when we figured that out, that changed the game for him. I talked about Joe Conroy, and this book, Decades in Decisions, Financial Planning at Any Age, is really interesting to me. We went from, I remember saying to him, Joe, there are a million financial planning books. We got to find a way to make yours different. And as we were talking, he started talking about, well, when you're in your 20s, you need to do this to be financially skilled and most effective financially. When you're in 30s, you do this. When you're in your 40s, you do this. Like in the 40s, I think it was about preparing for your kids to go to college and putting money away for that and really starting to think about retirement. And so he wrote this book, and he talks about each decade. And I'm really proud of the book because it just conveys a topic that's out there in so many different ways. And this is a way I've never seen anyone else do it. And I'm really proud that when he says he went from writing a book to the author that wrote the book, Joe really put a lot of effort into his book. He really put a lot of time. And I think my encouragement along the way really helped him get it done. And you can see it changed me from just another professional into an industry thought leader. Joe's been speaking about his book. He's won some awards. He was in New York for an awards ceremony not that long ago. Joe's book really helps him in really important ways. And that's what I want to do for you. So you're probably saying, what do I have to do? You need to give me an hour, hour and a half a day for 3 to 4 months. And in return, I'm going to give you the guidance, coaching, planning, best practices, all the tricks I know. I'm going to edit and proofread your book. I'm even going to help you with the cover design, the layout. I'm going to get the book ready for printing. And if you choose, I'll even print it for you. That's entirely up to you. And I believe in my 4-month process. So as you can see here, if you complete your book in 4 months, I'm going to drop $1,000 off the price. If you see how a business book can help you and your company, and you're serious about taking the steps to put that book together, I want to talk to you. Schedule a time using this link. I'll send you a form that will help you start the positioning and outlining, and then we'll have a discussion. See what's possible and see how it's best for you to proceed. Book that call today, and we can get started really soon on building your business book.